Hello, I'm Rocco. I'm with MIT Lincoln Laboratory. I'm editor of the VITA 65 standards and also 46.0, and I participate in a bunch of the both VITA and SOSA working groups. So what I'm going to talk to you now about is what's going on with OpenVPX. I'll start out just by a very quick review of OpenVPX and associated standards, what's actually being standardized. Talk about the relationship of OpenVPX with other standardization efforts. And then OpenVPX plans and trends. I'll look at connector modules that are defined in 65.1 and what there was in 2017, and then what we added in 2019, 2021, and with what's expected to be the 2023 release. I'll talk about the alternative module profile scheme, or AMPS, and then slot and backplane profiles that have been added over time, and then the protocols that are being added over time, followed by a summary. So OpenVPX is standardizing primarily the interface between a plug-in module and the backplane, the electrical interface. And then it does make some references to VITA 48 standards, and it's the VITA 48 standards that are defining the cooling interface and mechanical interfaces between the plug-in module and the sidewalls of the chassis. I should also mention, since we've talked so much about SOSA, the term in SOSA for this is a PIC, or plug-in card. And in VITA 65, we talk about or in VITA in general, we talk about plug-in modules. The reason for SOSA using a different term is that module is used for lots of other things within SOSA, and we want to prevent generating any confusion. So, relationship to other standards. This is for where we're getting input on OpenVPX. We get input, obviously, from VITA member companies, and then the SOSA hardware working group, host, both on the working group and from the working group that works on host, as well as those using it. And then C5ISR, CMOS is really influencing us they're also influencing SOSA. And we have a general effort to align the standards. One of the good things about advantages to working in SOSA as well as VITA is SOSA allows us to have export-controlled conversations that influence what goes into the standards, and then we can get it into drafts of the standards, and then get feedback from both SOSA and VITA. And in VITA, we get feedback from the international community and can take that into account also. Oh, I should mention, obviously, the SOSA standard has been mentioned, that's publicly released. So the SOSA standard itself is available to everyone. It's the discussions that we have for the reasons why things are being done that can be export controlled, depending on what's discussed. So the current versions of OpenVPX came out in 2021. The 65.0, which is the base standard, and then 65.1 gives essentially all of the tables that go with 65.0. And then what was added in 2021 was 16 connector modules. We added 16 connector modules to VITA 65.1 in addition to the 10 that were already there in the 2019 version. We added the AMPS, ability to describe module profiles with AMPS, and that ended up being a fair amount of work. That was a big effort. And then we've added the protocol, Ethernet, Aurora, general purpose serial, and general purpose electrical protocol sections. In 2021, there's only one new 6U and two new backplane profiles. So the point that we're at now is we're not adding that many new slot profiles, other than adding dash options to the profiles for apertures. And then we've made changes to enable the use of the higher speed connectors that have become available. Now, we've got the 2020, what we expect to be the 2023 version is in the final stages of the standardization within the working group. What we're adding there is two 2 connector modules to VITA 65.1, which I'll show you, and those are for 75 ohm, they have 75 ohm contacts for video. And then we've added a bunch of protocol sections, some of which are at 26 gigabaud using PAM4, which gives you 50 gigabits per lane. We've added serial FPDP. We've added some more general purpose electrical, and then a bunch of video protocols. There are no new slot or backplane profiles being added with the 2023 version other than dash options. And then after 2023, we expect to continue adding protocol sections. There may be some slot profile sections depending on what's needed. And I expect there'll be more dash options for the slot profiles specifying which apertures are used with which slot profiles. And there is, as has been mentioned, there's ongoing activity to figure out what's coming next in terms of next generation VPX. So in 2017, we started, that's when we first started putting in optical and coax. And so we started with these 5 connector modules. You can see there's the smallest one there is what we've referred to as a half aperture. It's the size of a half connector in VPX. And then there's 3 that are full size, and there's 1 that's 1.5. And one of these is mixing optical and coax, and one is optical only. But these are relatively low density, and this was before the 66.5 effort. So in 2019, we added 5 more that are leveraging VITA 66.5. And that allows us to be able to have much higher density and have optical and coax in there together. And you can see that there's some there. That's the one in the lower left has 4 MTs. And those MTs could have 24 fibers each, so it's fairly high density. And then we've got some of the mixture of coax contacts, as you can see. The work with VITA 66.5 kept going, and in the 2021 version, we added a whole bunch of connector modules for different applications. And you can see there's going to be 3 slides of them. This is the first one. These are the ones that are full size. The next slide, these are the 5 that are half size, and these are the ones that are 1.5. And you notice that in the half size, we can get 3 MTs, and so over on the left, the 1.5 gives us 6 MTs total, which is a lot of fibers. And then, yeah, the top center. One of the things that happened as we worked on VITA 66.5 is that some of these, you can see that the fine print there, that it's not recommended for new designs. So that as we worked on the standardization process and came to more of an agreement as to what we should do, we actually decided, made a conscious decision to say, yeah, we want to standardize these because there's already things in the process that are going to use them, but we're not recommending them for new designs. And I think that was that may be the first time that's happened where within VITA we've made a purpose decision that we're not recommending something for a new design that early in the process. And then in 2023, the 2 we're adding now with the latest version is to get the VITA, the 75 ohm contacts in there to support video. So we've got these 2, the 1 half size and 1 full size. And these have been referenced in some of the other presentations. I'm just going to talk very quickly about amps and what led to it. Down the bottom, you can't see it very well, but that's a classic module profile table. And what we did was we had, in VITA 65.1, we've got lists of dash options, and each dash option is a specific slot profile, including the aperture that goes in there, and if it's got optical, the optical profile that tells you how the optics is broken up into various pipes, and all of the, and then the protocols that are going on the copper planes. Well, as we added a whole bunch of optical and coax options, the number of combinations exploded, and we realized it was no longer practical to generate these sorts of lists. So what we went to was the strings. We went to a string description, and I'm not going to get into this in detail, but the message is that we now, both within SOSA and VITA, are using strings to specify what the module profiles actually are, which give you what slot profile there is. This actually includes the cooling type, and then all the protocols in the copper planes and the protocols on the optical part, or can all be expressed in this. And now I'm going to go through the trends in slot profiles. You can see how many have been added with each version. This is the 2019 version. We added 5 6U slot profiles and 6 3U slot profiles. And then in 2021, we only added 1. I mean, so we've stopped we haven't been needing the new slot profiles because we covered things fairly well earlier. And then we added 2 backplane profiles that use some of the newer slot profiles. Now what I'll do now is I'll go over some of what's been going on with protocols. So in 2019, we added a bunch of Ethernet protocols. These are the ones that go up to around 26 gigabaud, but they're NRZ. And we've added one InfiniBand protocol here. And then we also, in 2019, added USB. This was driven partly because we came up with a slot profile for the IO-intensive slot profile that Mark mentioned earlier. Needs things like USB and serial ports, and so we've added protocols for those back in 2019. And then we've got signals over coax and some GPIO. And one of the reasons for adding the GPIO is previously the GPIO was just done however anybody wanted it and using user-defined pins. Well, we're getting rid of the user-defined pins in the newer slot profiles, so we now have to define things like, okay, if you've got some general purpose I/O, it can go on these pins, and here's what the voltage levels are. So in 2021, we added a couple of additional Ethernet sections, some additional Aurora, additional serial port sections, and general purpose electrical sections. Now with what's expected in 2023, we've added some Ethernet protocols that are using the 26 gigabaud PAM with PAM4 signaling. That's 4 levels. And I should mention, this has been talked about earlier, but I think it's important to realize that there's 2 things going on with the Ethernet protocols. One is the baud rate to get over the connector. And to first approximation, the 26 gigabaud tells you what the connector is capable of in terms of baud rate. But now PAM4 is taking that and dividing into 4 levels. And that makes it much more sensitive to crosstalk and noise. And so it remains, we've added these, but it remains to be seen, whether COT suppliers will figure out, whether it'll be figured out exactly what's needed to do in order to get this. These may not work with the current connectors. It may end up being that these are only for the next gen connector, and that's really TBD. But we've got the protocols in there, so it's well defined in terms of what they are. And then we've got serial front panel data ports been added, and a couple of electrical sections. And then we added a bunch of video protocols. So as Mike mentioned earlier, we've added a composite video baseband, analog video for aircraft, video signal data interface, or SDI. And I don't list all the sections separately, but there are sections for that. And then Co-Express, there are a bunch of sections for that. And then avionics digital video bus. So we've added a whole bunch of stuff to support video. So in summary, VITA, SOSA, host, and CMOS communities are giving input to the revision of OpenVPX standards. 65.0 and .1 were published last in 2021. We're expecting the 2023 version to come out this year. And then we're, after 2021, I expect it'll be a living document. We'll continue adding probably add some more slot profiles, more protocol sections, SOSA dash, and some slot profile dash options. And then there's ongoing work, and we're working to figure out what's next. Any questions?